When the doctor told me that my baby was deaf, I looked at him and made the letter A. The baby was just moving, but in my mind a vision unfolded. Way in the past, a man named Gallaudet, Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet, and of his little girl named Alice. Alice herself was a small deaf girl who had never been to school. In the past, what did they do with deaf people? Lock them in mental institutions, hiding them away in shame. Gallaudet, at that time, going to school to become a priest, was walking along one day when he saw the girl playing. He had heard talk among the neighbors that there was something wrong with that girl. She was deaf. So he tapped her, and she looked up at him, and he became interested in her. He taught her how to write her first word, H-A-T, hat. Her first word. Alice was excited. Hat. She ran to her father, who was a rich doctor. After a while, the father noticed Gallaudet's real interest, and the friends and rich neighbors in Hartford, Connecticut, way back in 1815, somewhere around there, talked among themselves and decided, why not send Gallaudet to England? Because they had heard that in England they had a school for deaf people, which would be for Alice, who was also deaf. So Gallaudet went to England. He arrived there, but he got nothing but no, no. Asking why, they said their method was a family secret. The same answer he received in Scotland. They didn't allow them to sign, slapping their hands, and emphasized oralism only. But they told him, you better go to France. So he went to France, and you know how the French people learned sign language from the priests? Because way in the past, the monks learned to teach deaf children of rich, very rich families. They learned to develop a way to communicate with them. That way was brought from Italy to France, and in France, a school for the deaf was there. The abbey, head abbey, met him and was very happy to teach him how to teach the deaf, and introduced him to Clare. Clare was deaf himself. He could teach you how, he said. So Gallaudet stayed, and with temptation to steal Clare. He was a fine man. Thinking, he offered Clare to move to America, to go back with Gallaudet. Clare thought about it, and Gallaudet convinced him, fooled him. Well, fooled him, I don't know, but anyway, the abbey was disappointed and said all right and let Clare go to America with the agreement that would be for a short time. But really, Clare never went back to teach in France again anyway. He went and met Alice and established a school for the deaf with 7 children. It was that big event was in 1817, way back. But you know what? Later, through research and in papers that were found, it was found that Alice, the little deaf girl herself, felt isolated. She was sick of the hearing people. She felt the same way we do, really. Alice wrote a letter to a friend complaining that, Mommy forces me to go to tea. I hate to go to tea, sipping and watching the hearing ladies gossip. I feel isolated. I'd rather stay home alone. It'd be better. See, it's the same now. Gallaudet, you know, a hearing man, married a deaf girl named Sophia Fowler. They had several children, several hearing children. But you know, that was the first deaf-hearing marriage that is documented. Now, today, we have many marriages with hearing and deaf. And now I look at my son, who is deaf, and I think of Gallaudet teaching Alice A, and now I begin to teach my son A.